Morning, everyone. I'm Polly. This is Patty.
Morning.
Morning. Hi, Patty.
Hi. How's
How
it
are
going?
you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Good.
Good.
Beautiful weather once again
Yeah.
on a Wednesday.
I know it's crazy. I feel like we just say this every week. We just talk about
That's
the weather. To be fair, we've got one of the only windows in the office that
Overlooking Harbour
really
Bridge.
looks like very outside in front of us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
So
probably
whoever's
why
in
we
Sydney.
talk about the weather all the time.
So if you guys are in Sydney, it's amazing today. Just have a look outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks so much all for joining this morning session. This morning we are talking about labels. Even though it does sound a bit basic, there's much more to labels than you think.
Yeah.
So we want you to um, understand what value those labels can bring to the table, to your business as well. For me, labels are kind of like a hidden treasure. I love labels, and they do a lot for me, and not just for me, for managing director Andy, for designers, for everyone, for the whole company. So I think today's session is all about you getting to know labels a bit better and understanding the value and how could you be using labels for in your business.
It's quite funny because whenever we're talking to a client or someone in the office who's asking around, oh, how could I do this in Streamtime, or do you think we could do this? Do you think we could report on this? The answer is like
Labels.
always just use a label. And so there's almost like a running joke in the office just based on the fact that labels are just like the answers to everyone's questions. And the truth is that's because they're essentially allow you to report on whatever you want. Not even report, but they've got so many different uses, which we've kind of not even discovered ourselves. We've seen our clients come up with interesting ways of using them for all sorts of different things. So there's no right or wrong way to use them.
Exactly.
But yeah, today we're going to show you what some of these people are doing, what we would suggest in terms of useful ways to use labels based on who you are in the business, what you're reporting on, what you want to see. Because at the end of the day, what we do want you guys to get out of this session is some useful ways to report using labels and understand how you can kind of use these with other filters and columns to kind of pull those reports apart and see them in different ways.
And we've been running webinars for 2 years now, and we never run a webinar on labels. So this is the first.
Not specifically, yeah. Labels always make their way into our webinars, but this one is the first time we've gone like I think we said last week, it was like, do you think we could talk about labels for 30 minutes? And I was like, yeah, of course.
100%. And so this morning session is going to be broken down into a few parts.
Yeah.
So we will talk about the label overview. So just talk about the benefits that labels bring to the table, what labels are really, and how can you use them. So it's very easy to, as you might have noticed, it's very easy to create a label. So we're going to talk about how can you clean up your label list as well, so you don't have to be stuck with like hundreds of same label but different version of it. So it's not ideal. Obviously, we want to be consistent with that. And then we will talk about different ways of using labels based on different roles. So project lead, for example, a studio manager, a business owner, and a finance manager. So we will touch base on different reports that you can create and different types of labels that you can create for those. Then we will just slightly touch base on expense and quote labels because those are labels too.
Totally.
They're not job labels, they're expense labels or quote labels. And that's it. And at the end, if you guys have any questions or suggestions around how you would like to use labels, or maybe you're using them a bit differently and we don't mention those today, we would love to hear that too. So feel free to just send messages and say hi and just be active.
Drop them into the chat, say hello, who are you? Are you using labels currently? Let us know. How are you using them? We want to give you guys useful information here today, so we don't really want to tell you things that you already know, whilst that might be useful. It'd be good to hear if you're also doing things differently, and you can share that with us and everyone else who's here today. Cool. Well, why don't we let's just talk about labels generally, I'm going to open up Streamtime, and
Yep.
before we do kind of go into specific types of labels, or like what different labels we could have, let's talk about just labels generally. So, what are labels for anyone who actually doesn't know, and why are
So-
they useful?
Yeah, so labels act like tags. They help with overall organization,
Yep.
and they ensure consistency in reporting.
Yep.
So if you think about label, think about the reports, the information that you like to report on, using Streamtime. So they group jobs together, they identify jobs as well, type of the
Yep.
jobs perhaps.
Yep.
And so yeah, are you using labels?
Yeah, I use labels all the time. I find labels useful for, if, for example, looking at the jobs that I'm more heavily involved in, I'll add myself as a label so that I can easily see the jobs that I'm currently like managing or working on here, just in a list together, so that I can kind of declutter that and isolate them. But it's also useful to just look at, labels for. I mean, people use them for reference, so using them more visually as opposed to even reporting on them, for example. So in this instance here, we can kind of see this massive group of labels that are kind of just sitting here bolted on. But at a glance, it's really easy for me to see key things about this job. As you were saying before, they identify things about a job.
Yep.
So, oh yeah, that's a branding job based in Australia that Paulina's managing. That tells me so much about the job already that I wouldn't otherwise have if I didn't have those labels.
Yeah.
So I think that's the other thing as well. Labels can be used quite simply, but they just provide information that is meaningful to you because you essentially define what the label is.
Exactly. So that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The beauty of using labels, they're completely customizable to your business. We can tell you how you can use labels, but you are creating labels. You are the one reporting on your business. So you can create your own labels based on what's important to you.
Totally. So let's say, for example, I want to add a new label on here. Maybe this project here, I can just click in and start typing to create a label. Now, when I'm doing this, I can create a brand new label from scratch, or I can select from a list of labels that already exists based on, what I'm starting to type. Streamtime might recognize that this label already has been used. So maybe I want to use a label that is like quote approved, for example. And you can see as I was typing there, Streamtime's finding a few others where it's matching those words. So if I wanted to actually add the quoted label here, I can scroll down this list and select them. And that's a great way to get consistent with your labels because they are lightweight. And if I were to hit return right now, it would save this label. If you do a typing error, sometimes you could be adding labels to this list, which is quite easy to clean up and fix. And we'll show you that in a second. But you can scroll down and select those labels to ensure that you're always using the same ones when you're typing that out. But I want to add a new one here, which is quote approved. So I want to hit return there.
Cool.
I can see that I've just added that. Now, if I were to go to another job here and I start typing, already I can see that quote approved is now sitting there. So Streamtime's realized that. Oh, there we go. I've just added one by accident. It happens, but then again, easy enough to delete. But Streamtime has picked up that I've used that label elsewhere, and it's going to give me that as an option.
Perhaps it's a good idea to sit down with key people in your business and think about the labels that you would like to use in Streamtime and create them. So your designers or just other people in your team, they don't have to create them, and they can just use the drop-down list of labels as Spider just shown, so they don't have to create multiple different same label but different wording. So that's not ideal.
Yeah, but sometimes that happens, like for example, I did accidentally type quote instead of quoted, for example. I hit that one too early.
Happens to me all the time.
It happens to all of us, happens to the best of us. Nothing we can do about that. Now, one really easy way to go and find any labels is, and to be honest, as you use Streamtime, you'll just start to notice them more as you are adding labels to jobs.
Yep.
I'm going to clear this list or these filters, and I'm going to add a new label. And let's say I want to look at these quoted. I can actually see down the bottom here, there are a few labels relating to quoting here. Now, some of them to be quoted, quoting, quoted, quote approved. It's like there are some that are kind of overlapping there, and especially this bottom one, that looks like a typo. So I might want to get rid of that and replace it with quoted, which is probably what it was meant to be. So I can use the job label there, find it, So I can see just this job, and I'm going to see all instances where that typo was used. So, even if you have used that incorrect label across multiple jobs, you're going to get a quick list of them here. And the nice thing is that it's really easy to then delete that label by just removing it and adding the correct one. So I can do that. And as you work down the list and remove all instances of this incorrect label, it's going to then just be deleted from Streamtime once it's no longer sitting on these jobs. So when you do that and you navigate away, you'll notice that it's now gone. So it shouldn't be causing any more problems.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe after this session, you guys can all be motivated using labels. So you can go to Streamtime and, clean up your labels a little bit. It's very easy to do that. Spring clean, yeah.
Late winter.
It's never too late.
Never too late. No. Casey just has a good question there, which I'm actually interested to hear a bit more about. Asking if there's any way of having labels per item as well as job. No, there isn't, but I'd be interested to hear what you're wanting to see, what you're maybe wanting to report by. There's potentially other ways we could see this. Casey, if you want to have a think about exactly what you're wanting to do there with those item labels, maybe, as it were, it'd be great to understand what that is, so we can maybe chat about that by the end of the session. Cool. Well, should we get into some role types?
Sure.
Okay.
So project lead. Me as a project lead, what I would like to see in Streamtime. So I would love to see who is responsible for a job. Account manager, account director, or just a project lead.
Yep.
So perhaps using label as a name of a person or who leads that project, perhaps Polly or Patty.
There we go.
This will allow you to report on all the projects that Patty leads, to be able to then understand how his projects are going, how much money has he brought to the business last month, for example, and so on. So it promotes some, good conversations with, hopefully, always good conversations with your team.
Yeah, it could be one thing to keep an eye on, how much work, or does each project lead in our business have enough work at the moment? Or even, for Paulina, you might want to come in and just see a list of the jobs you're working on and see how you're tracking as well.
That's it.
Just to keep them all at the front of your eye and make sure that they're all easily accessible. And then once we've done that, so as you can see here, we're just looking at our active jobs, things that are paused in play or completed, like currently happening in the studio, as opposed to being archived and put to rest, combined with the job label for Paulina. We've just saved that one as a favorite, and today we're going to be navigating just between some favorites that we've already got set up. But if you don't know how to use favorites, they're really easy. You can just come in here, set up different filters. This one is really simple, but if you try to add another thing, you'll see that, or maybe I'm going to look at this one for a particular company. So let's just say is Wrigley's. But you'll see down the bottom here, now I've changed that, I can save this as a favorite. So when you have those favorites applied, you can come down here and save them there, which will let you set up those reports to come back to all the time.
For sure.
So you've got Polly's there. I've got one for my jobs here as well. So really simple to just set up. Not much going on there. So as a project lead, that's a really important one. But what about as a studio manager? What might be some good labels that or reports lists that you'd want to see?
Yeah, sure. So perhaps you want to see what stage this project is sitting at. So the granular status of your job. So perhaps the job is with the client at the moment. So once, as I said, you guys need to agree on the job statuses and labels to use. Once you do, you can report on, say, jobs with the client. So right now, Patty is looking at all the jobs with the label with client. So that shows us all 3 jobs that we've got waiting for client approval. Branches.
Yeah.
It's another way of using labels too.
For sure. If you have multiple offices set up and you're using Streamtime as one hub to manage those 3 different branches or offices, for example, then you can also set up the jobs that are based with those home branches. For example, you might have a Sydney office, a Brisbane office, or a Christchurch office, or even international, for example. We might have jobs that are based in Australia or Europe, for example. And so we can easily set up a list of our Australia in progress, especially if you are in a larger studio, you have a ton of jobs and you just want to cut down that list. Then adding in a job label for the country, the location of
Yeah.
those different offices where there's work. That work's coming through is a good one.
Yeah, for sure. Another way you can use labels is to identify a template job.
Mhm.
So you don't necessarily want to see all those template jobs when reporting on actual jobs, which is makes sense. And you would also want to have your template jobs saved in an area, in the favorite reports area. So you can always open it and duplicate a job if you need to start working on it. So using a label template to identify this job, and then when it comes to reporting on it, you can either include a template job and only report on all the template jobs that you have to see all the list of templates, or exclude it from your reports too. So exclude it from your in play, post, completed, and archived jobs. So you don't when it comes to reporting on overall profitability.
Totally, totally. As a little tip here, I suggest if you are setting up template jobs to then duplicate and use, if you do have those really set structured jobs like we have got here, as you can see, these are all archived, and I'd recommend keeping the original master template as an archived job. What that's going to do is remove it from your WIP list, so it doesn't impact any numbers there. Like here, we can see I've got $72,000 of planned. So it'll just remove it from that list, and it'll keep it all in one place, and it means you can get them all really cleanly in one spot when you're coming to find that template list.
It does look really clean.
Yeah, clean and easy.
Well done, Paddy. Actually, I never thought of archiving the template job. Thanks.
No worries.
I just learned something too.
Yeah,
so.
there you go. Nice little one. Another one for studio managers as well is retainers, and that's quite a specific use case. I think with retainers, what we're kind of getting into the territory of is types of work, types of jobs, but specifically with retainers, it can be really useful based on how we would manage these in Streamtime. And I've got one here somewhere. Retainers, Streamtime retainer. Oh no, Streamtime retainer is the name of the.
Yeah.
Am I blind?
No, you're not. Should we?
No, it's here somewhere. Here we go. Boom. There we go. Cool. So as you can see, the filters that I've got here are company is Streamtime, job status is including active and archived jobs. Why? Because the retainer contract might be over a 12-month period. We're using monthly jobs to track that and see where we currently are in the scheme of our entire retainer. And obviously I've removed the template job from here using that job label filter is not template. Now what we can see here is a list of about 12 jobs. Maybe this is the entire contract, and I can actually look at the current status of my entire retainer contract together right now, which is really interesting. So I can see that on the entire budget, the variance is currently 40,000 away from that 60, which is essentially the total. So on each month, we have a $5,000 allowance for this budget or for this retainer. And I can see the current total cost, total used against that budget as well. So using this list here to see the entire project in one view and report on its current status is really useful.
That's true. And to prevent you from doing like what Patty did, searching for all this job, all the favorite reports, you can actually rearrange those favorites. So perhaps you putting all the important reports, the most important reports to the top of the list, so you don't have to just scroll down. Sorry, Patty.
No. I hope. I mean, it'd be great to see if some people did have this many reports set up.
Yeah, that's true.
Although I would not expect that many people to. I think he would kind of created many different use cases for many different types of people.
And also, if you don't want to use some of the favorites that we've created for you in advance, you can just delete them.
Yeah, you can delete them by just coming here, clicking edit, and then you can either change the name or remove the trash can.
Yeah.
There we go. All right.
Okay, cool. As a business owner, what sort of reports I would like to create and what sort of labels I can use for those? So perhaps identifying billable and non-billable jobs. So especially non-billable time, non-billable jobs. So we've got a label here set up already, non-billable. So when it comes to reporting on only non-billable time that Patty is doing right now, you can use labels for that. So if you go into filters, you can see we've used non-billable label, internal or non-billable.
And based on the type of job, we might be using one or either of those, or even both. But what this is doing is just catching all of them. And you can see here, I've actually said it contains internal or it is non-billable. So you can actually toggle this to say, to combine these two label filters together. So that's another nice little trick to look at as well, is clicking there to say, you know, sometimes your jobs you might just want to look at things that are specifically internal and non-billable. Or, you know, if you're looking across jobs that are non-billable but a type of job, or in your Australian office, then you'll want to combine those two together. For example, in this case, maybe I want to look at things that are just in Australia, and I want to click and, so that these are all pulled through together. Looks like I haven't got any here.
But what about billable jobs? You can then have your job labels not contain non-billable.
Yeah, exactly. Is not
or is not
non-billable,
non-billable.
does not contain internal.
Perfect.
And I want to use and here, so it's going to make sure that all of my jobs here are matching this criteria, as opposed to or, where they're just looking for one of these labels on all of those jobs. But yeah, I might go back to that non-billable time job list just because I've played around with those filters. But essentially here, it's good because we're looking across the time spent. We're seeing the cost of the time spent on our own business, you know, the work that we're not actually charging. But interestingly, we're also able to see the potential sell amount of that. So what was the opportunity that time could have, you know, awarded us maybe?
That's true. It's really important for me as a business owner.
Yeah.
I would love to be a business owner. But
totally.
If I were.
And depending on the types of report that you're running, you might want to include archive jobs. If you know you do run many small projects internally, and these do tend to get archived, look at those as well, and even include a date range. So look at the date logged. Maybe you want to look at it over the course of a year, over the course of a month, or a quarter. Using the date logged filter there is really useful as well. So I might say, in this case, we want to look at all the time tracked, maybe since the 1st of April, but before 1st of July. And that's just creating a bracket here where I can see the cost of time spent on the business in that quarter.
Yeah.
And I might even want to look at this across team member to see who spent time where, who spent the most amount of time working on internal work. And Polly, it looks like that might have been you.
Well, okay.
I was not such a close second, but I'm up there too. Cool.
You can also use labels to group your jobs together under a project.
Yep.
So then, as a business owner, you can report on the one big project that consists of multiple jobs. So this is an example of our project, the Streamtime redesign, and we use the label Streamtime redesign. So that's the project and the label.
Yep.
So we label our jobs with that label. I feel like I said label many times this time. And then this report will allow us to understand what's happening in that project over a certain amount of time with different jobs created.
Totally. In terms of the cost of the business, the profitability, that's where that's really useful. And especially if you do work with this same client, but it's not always on the same project. For example, this work here was specifically on the Streamtime redesign, for example, but you know, maybe there was another piece of work that we had to work with Streamtime on that wasn't actually part of this project. That's where the label is really coming in handy to make sure we're just looking at this project or campaign together.
Sure.
Another good one is the type of work that you're working on. For example, we might do we might do various types of work between, you know, branding, copywriting, digital development, for example. And I can see here I've got a branding profit report set up. And so we just added branding as a label here to these jobs to look at the profitability, profitability, and
all of our branding.
Exactly, yeah. Again, looking at job statuses, including those archives, showing us all of our branding work. So if you want to do a review on how much, that's getting your business, is that where you're losing out? Is that where you're strongest? These are good questions to be asking and reviewing using those labels. And another one for a business owner that is always good is keeping an eye on the pipeline.
Yeah, I feel like we did mention that in the past, and we will keep mentioning it for you because it's another way for you to report on what's coming in your business and when. So labeling a job an opportunity or a pipeline, and then using that label to report on what's coming in your business. And as Patty is showing right now, all we want to see when this job is going to be due, what are the what's the budget for this job that we're forecasting?
How much is it worth?
How much is it worth? Yeah, so it looks like we've got 359,000 coming in within the next month. Wow, pretty good. And using the label opportunities to filter this view, and we do have another labels with a percentage amount, which is the probability, the likelihood of this job to come across, and looks like that winter veg should it's 95% coming through, so that's
Most
good.
Likely. Definitely. So okay, moving on to the last kind of user type before we do start to wrap things up. I'm worried that we're pushing time a little bit.
We
definitely
can
talk about labels for 30 minutes. It's so easy.
You're going to be dreaming of labels.
Yeah. Cool. So as a finance manager, I might want to see the payment status of jobs together at a glance. That's really important for me to know which of our jobs have been billed or haven't, or are partially billed, or are over budget, or awaiting payment. These are all really answered with labels as well. You can see here as we kind of scan down, there is a part billed, there is a build.
Maybe your current process
is over budget.
Yeah, so whoever creates an invoice will label a job to be invoiced. So then your finance manager will have a report, what are the jobs to be invoiced, so she just needs to focus on those. It really depends on your current invoicing process.
Totally. It is certainly useful there too. And thinking about labels for, those payments, we do have the ability to add labels to quotes, as we mentioned before. So if there are quotes that, do take kind of different statuses, even beyond those that we kind of provide, they can be really useful as well to use and report on in your quote list, for example.
Yep. So like expired or superseded quote. There's some of the examples that I've come across.
Looks like we don't have many in here.
Yeah, I'm wondering if any of you use quote labels at all, or just the job labels. It would be interesting for us to know.
But expenses as well. We can add labels to expenses. And these are quite useful for understanding different types of cost to the business. As we can see here, we've got, travel, photographer. These are all ways of grouping together different types of expenses that we might use regularly, that we can then report on. So we want to see the entire cost of travel to our business. What is the margin on our travel? Is this enough? These kinds of things. Contractors as well. So even if you want to go and see a quick list of all of the contractors or photographers that you've used before, retrospectively, that's going to make it really easy to find these just with the use of the label against your expenses there. And yeah, so your expense labels and your quote labels are different to your job labels. They're going to help you report on different things, but they work just the same in that you can always apply filters here for an expense label.
Sure.
Cool. Whoa. Okay.
It was just half an hour. I think it's
29
perfect.
minutes. Let's just look at this point from Casey, which is quite interesting. So we have some items that are billed hourly and some that are fixed fee. So it sounds like you're interested in reporting on those labels by the way that they're structured, by the way that they're priced and set up, which is interesting. I wonder if there might be ways to kind of see what you're seeing. For example, within the time list here, you can report by item name. So if you are using master items, like you have your items and expenses list set up and you're using them consistently across all your jobs, and always items are either fixed fee or based on an hourly rate,
Mm.
then you could set up a favorite time report combining these items together. So looking at all of your hourly billed items or all of your fixed rate items
Yeah.
together here.
So you can add as many items as you want. You can add more than one item.
Exactly,
into it,
yeah. So let's
And
just
save
say,
it as favorite.
exactly. So let's just say, oh, I don't even know, there's too many to choose from here. So let's say we want to look at design
Mm-hmm.
and concept development here.
Cool.
We can easily look at that report, but this isn't showing me much information because I haven't got
We
time
haven't.
to get them in this
Mm.
list.
Mm.
Sorry about that.
That should give you an idea of how to perhaps report on what you're looking for.
Yeah. Chris has asked if labels are case sensitive. Is that something Streamtime would consider changing? I believe that they are. Yeah,
I think so.
I think so.
We can find
But
out
one
for
other
you.
one other good way to use labels, if you know you are wary of case sensitivity, is looking at contains
Mm.
as opposed to using the specific job label is. So by using contains, I think that kind of will detract from the case sensitivity of those. So I want to look at all things that are related to quoting, for example. I knew before I can do this and see all job labels that kind of have this, and I can see that I'm getting my quoted and
Yeah.
my quote approved. And again, it's not looking at the case sensitivity of that quote there. So that might help you find those together, Chris. Well, let's wrap it.
Let's wrap it. I think we've given you a lot of ideas and a lot of information, so you guys can go ahead and clean up your labels, create all your labels. So if you do have any questions about labels later on, just message us and using that help button in Streamtime, and we can always chat about your business in particular and give you suggestions and ideas around those as well if you need to. But
Awesome.
I hope it was useful.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.